everybody. Gonna let everybody kind of hop on. It's Thursday. I think it's Thursday, June 11th. I had to look at the calendar. Thursday, June the 11th, 7 o'clock. How are you guys doing? Hope you are doing good. Weather's been pretty good. It's hot, but not like it had been. And tonight, I'm gonna work on a flamingo. All right, so here's my flamingo. He's standing up. I have him already base coated. So I base coated him in a light pink. And this down here is Christmas green. I think it's number 11. And then I put our yellow, our light yellow, I put some white in it. I wanted his beak a little whiter, a little lighter. So I mixed yellow and white on the beak. And then of course this is white and this is black. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm going to do my circles in that, what I call the dark shading pink, okay? So you have light pink and you have shading pink. So, I'm going to use the shading pink. Hey Debbie, how are you? Hope you're good, girl. So I'm gonna do my circles in shading pink. I've just got a round brush. This is a number 8 round brush. So I'm going to kind of put this, I think you guys can see right there. I'm gonna kind of load this brush up for just a second here because I don't have any paint in it yet. So I'm gonna load my brush up and here I go. I'm just gonna paint my circles. This little guy, the body, is gonna be a light pink like what you see. And I'm gonna do my circles in a dark pink. And in this case, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go just down into the groove right there where the bit of that CNC etched the pattern. All right, I've got that one kind of the way I want it. I'll start over here kind of the furthest away from my body. And this way I can kind of work towards me. I know y'all heard us say that before. And just putting some dark pink, shading pink right here. This is a polka dot that's off the edge. And I'm on to my next polka dot. I'm gonna do that side right here. And while I'm up here, I didn't do this side, so I'll just go ahead and do that one. Put a little bit more paint right there. Yeah, I didn't have any paint there. Okay, so I have that where I want it. And I don't know if you can tell, but I do have quite a bit of paint. Hey, Debbie. Hi, Deborah. How are y'all? Good to see y'all. So glad y'all are here. So I'm going to, the thing I think with the light or the shading pink is, it is what I like to call temperamental. What I mean by that is if I start with this brush and I bear down on this brush and I start moving that paint, it gets transparent on me. I don't know if you can really see. It gets real transparent when I start doing that. So I'm not going to bear down on that. I'm just gonna do what I call like a feather, a light feather stroke. Just trying to keep the paint or the bristles of the brush just enough to move that paint a little bit. I'm not bearing down on that stroke at all because this paint is what this color can be what I call temperamental. And it doesn't like it if you start bearing down on it and if you don't have enough paint. So you can tell I've got a lot of paint here. I actually have too much for that circle, so I'm gonna bring some over here. But you really can't tell by the camera, but I'm not putting a lot of pressure. I'm putting some pressure on, but just a very light stroke to keep that paint to where you can't see through it. You start bearing down on this color and you're gonna start seeing through it, and you don't want that. And not every color is like that. There's some colors you can bear down the paintbrush, no big deal. Other colors you bear down on that paintbrush and you can see right through the paint. And when that happens, I like to call it temperamental. I don't know what other word to use to describe that. So I'm doing this in a light stroke. A lot of paint is on my brush. You can see I have a lot of paint there, and this is the right amount. I don't want any more at any one time, but I don't want any less paint than this either. So I'm gonna do that. Okay, I'm gonna kind of keep doing my circles. Putting that, I just chose to do my circles in the shading pink. You don't have to, but that's just kind of what I chose on this pattern. And I'm gonna do my sides like we always do. And I got a lot of paint there, but that's okay. Now here, I'm just kind of going and moving that paint around as I move that brush. Just trying to get that paint. Again, I'm not bearing down at all. A very light, almost a light type feather stroke to it. A lot of paint, but not a lot of pressure on my brush. I hope you guys are learning all sorts of things watching the videos that Ashley and I do. Hey Joyce, how are you? Good to see you. I'm so glad you could join us. But one of the things I hope that you can take away from the videos is, and Ashley and I both do this, is we use a lot of paint. And that's part of the secret of getting a lot of coverage on there and getting that paint to be very, very concentrated in color is what I'm trying to say. I've got too much paint there, so I'm gonna bring it over here. All right, let's go back with some decent brush strokes. I'm just lightly feather stroking that in. Then I'm gonna come over here. I don't know if I'm gonna have enough paint here or not, but I'm gonna try to work with this and not put any more paint on here, because this is the, oh no, I have one more circle. I was thinking this is the last circle, but I have one more up here, so I'm putting, and again, for those of you that didn't hear it a little earlier, this is a number 8 round brush is all I'm using, okay? And gonna get a lot of paint there. Load that paintbrush up. That's what I'm kind of doing with this circling, just kind of loading it up. Gonna paint the side right here where my circle is. Okay, let's go back. And then I'm gonna come back in here and put some paint in there. Okay, I've got my circles pretty much where I want them. I'm gonna paint this side right here. And I noticed in the comments today, or one of the posts, I can't remember if it was, one of the ladies was talking about she's wanting some advice on shading. And so here's the deal, that, you know, if you can conquer shading, you got it, you know, but it's hard in the beginning, you know. It's not hard for me, but I've been doing it for, geez, a long time. So it is hard when you get started. So I'm gonna work on shading here, my grass. And I told the lady today that was commenting, I said, shading is something I'll work on a little bit more in the live tonight. So here's the deal with shading. What you wanna do, and I'm gonna stand up, this brush has got a lot of green in it, but I'm not too worried about that. It's been sitting in water because I've been working on green today. So I'm gonna show you, I'm gonna put it right up here, hopefully where you guys can see. That is where I've got that concentration of that green paint at, okay? And so what I'm gonna do is I'm going to keep that concentration of green paint on the edge right here, right? I'm gonna pull up a little bit, okay? Now I wanna show you, if you can see that, I'm trying to get it right there. That shading is not perfect, okay? And I think as much as we can in videos, I want to say this over and over, but it's very true. Don't be so hard on yourself when you're shading, because it's not going to be a situation where it's all perfect. I'm going to cover up a lot of this, you're going to see in a minute, with some black paint when I come in and I outline that. So I'm going to put that concentration of paint again right up here. And then I'm gonna come back up here. And when I get to the end part, I just kind of pull that brush up. You're just gonna kind of pull it up. There you go. And I'm gonna get this blade of grass and come over here with this blade of grass like so. And again, I don't know if you can tell, and I'll get up here in a minute and I'll put it up close to the camera where you can see. The shading that I'm doing is not flawless. It's not, every single stroke isn't, what is the word I'm looking for? Consistent in every way. it is, some of it might have a little more paint on this end, some of it might have a little less paint over here. But I don't let that bother me. So I'm gonna show you here in a minute. Now the other thing is when you look at this, I'm just trying to make sure, and I'm looking at it, and I have all of my sides are covered. Because that's important too. So you kind of look in there, and you can see all those sides are covered the way I want them. And we're gonna look on this side, see if all those sides are, they're not too bad. Okay, I got them kind of covered. So let's keep working on shading. So the other thing about shading too is, I'm looking at some of the photos that you guys are posting, and you guys are doing an awesome job. And I just want to keep encouraging you. I probably sound like a broken record. Hey, Carolyn, how are you? Probably sound like a broken record, but you got to practice, keep practicing, keep doing it, And I promise you, one day you'll go, oh, okay. I think I'm getting there. And so, all right, I'm going to come over here. Kind of put this a little better where y'all can see it. Okay. And when you're shading, you got that concentration of paint right there, right? And I'm taking that and I'm putting it on the edge. And then when I get towards me, I bring that brush and I kind of pick it up off a little bit. So, gonna do this and bring it up. This is a good example right here. I'm gonna show this. So this one, this shade mark looks a lot better to me than this one, but I'm not worried about it. This is grass. Grass is not gonna be perfect anyway in nature, okay? So don't be so hard on yourself. Some of you that are shading, I see y'all really, really hard on yourself. Give yourself a break. And then I'm gonna come back like so, like that, till I kind of have it the way I want it. Now the other thing you can do about shading, and I didn't get a whole lot down here, so I'm kind of coming back in here. You can come over it again, let it dry a little bit, get that paintbrush and put a little more paint on it, okay? All right, I think I've got everything kind of the way I want it in that regard. Now I'm gonna work with my black script, with black paint and my script liner. Now I have all sorts of sizes of script liners. When I say that, there's really only, I think it's 2 or 3. I can't remember. But it really depends on the job that I want to do. I'm going to show this to you guys. And move this out of the way. These are both script liners, okay? Now, so you can tell they've kind of seen their better days. They're not exactly in the best of shape. This one is a bigger script liner to begin with, but it also is a lot bigger because it's a lot older, and you can tell I've been really hard on this brush because you really can't tell it by the camera, but a lot of times I get carried away, and when I start script linering, and you can always tell the longer I script liner during the day, the worse I get. I'll start out kind of like this, you know, like I'm kind of got a light touch and everything's good, and then by the middle of the day I'm doing like this where that brush is really laying down, right? Then by the end of the day, that poor brush is just, it's seen its better days. And be honest with you, I probably will go through 10 script liners in a year, because at some point they just give up and you just throw them in the trash. But I paint a lot, so, you know, you got to kind of go with that. But in this case, I'm not going to use the big one. I'm going to go with the smaller one. I would use the bigger one on a bigger piece, but since I'm script linering this down here, I'm gonna just go with this smaller one. Not to say you couldn't use this, but in my opinion right now, my project is not quite big enough for this one. So I'm gonna use this one. The other thing you gotta always remember about your paint, especially, it's true no matter what you're doing, but especially true when you script liner. All right, so when you script liner, it's important that you have your paint pretty thinned out. Okay, so I'm just putting some water in here. And I'm going to show you in just a minute a little bit more about why I think you need it kind of thinned down. Okay, so I've got this paint more thinned down than what it was, so that's a good thing. Okay, I'm going to use the smaller script liner. Now my little flamingo legs, the little skinny dude legs right here is in the middle. So I'm going to start in the middle using that script liner. And if you can tell, I'm shooting to make sure that this line that the CNC bit created for the pattern, I'm going to cover that with paint, okay? So I'm gonna sit here for a minute and I'm just gonna kind of hit the bottom of that. You can tell I'm starting to get a lot of paint on there, right? And that's kind of what I want. I want quite a bit of paint on there. And I'm gonna just come over here to the edges, just kind of basically outlining is what I'm doing. Putting that paint down in that groove. You guys can probably tell as you've been painting that sometimes that groove down in there in that line seems a little bit bumpy. And it's the nature of MDO. What we use is MDO. It's called medium density overlay. It's a signboard material. And so the nature of the material is very, very hard. You know how you have, they say you have hardwoods and you have softwoods. This is a very, very hard product. So sometimes I can tell when I walk through the shop, I can tell the bit on that CNC when it's running is really, really a lot higher pitch than other times. And that tells me that bit is struggling. Now we, on our CNC, we have basically, our CNC is for cutting wood. It's not for cutting metal. So basically what it means is you have a 4x8 bed that holds down that material, the 4x8 sheet material, and it's got a big spindle, which is like a router. You know, everybody's probably seen a router, and that router plunges down and cuts wherever the pattern is. And so it's going at 16,000 RPMs, which is pretty powerful. But I can walk through the shop and I can tell when that bit is struggling because it's a much higher whine and pitch to it than other days. And so that means sometimes the bit's going out on us, sometimes the bit will break. Even, and you think, well, I have a brand new bit, it shouldn't be going out, but that doesn't always hold true. So when I see this, I know that the bit was really struggling to cut the edge, or cut the pattern into the board. And that's because MDO is a very, very hard material. And so, which is hence the part of the reason why, you know, it serves such a good purpose for what we're using it for. It's not going to fall apart on you when it gets out in the rain. Okay, so I've got that kind of the way I want it. Now what I'm going to do, and what I typically do, not all the time, but in this case, and in most cases this is true. What I typically do is I'm going to use my script liner and I'm going to go back in and line, or outline, if you will, my shading. I'm not going to cover up all my shading, but I'm going to cover up some of it. So that's part of the reason why I say don't worry if your shading isn't perfect. Part of your shading is going to get covered up if you outline, and I typically do. So okay. And then if you notice, I just kind of come in and make wispy lines, or marks if you will, wherever I shade it at. Hey Ashley. So I don't worry about everything being perfect. I don't think that's necessary. I worry about, does it please the eye? And as long as it pleases the eye, I'm good to go, okay? So, all right, so I have my grass, I have my legs, I think the way I want them. Yes, I'm gonna say yes. Now what I need to do is spend a little time on this little guy's beak. And so I'm going to use a shader on here. This one is a 16. It's kind of big, but it's what I got, so I'm gonna go with it. Okay. And there's not a lot to this guy's beak, really. There's just not a lot there. So I'm gonna do some shading around it. And then I'm going to kind of come back in here and draw that little part of the beak. And really, that's pretty much all I'm going to do to that beak, other than I might put a little bit of outline on it when it dries. And so I'm looking at this, and I can still see the grooves in that. And so what I want to do is I'm going to pick up that, I'm going to rinse out that script liner, and I'm going to come back with some white paint right here. I'm gonna put some more paint in here. Just putting some more paint on that white's all I'm doing. Now I think I'm gonna come back here with some white like this. This would be kind of what I would call highlights. Now I would come up here like so. Love highlights, that's just something I've always done. I think they're very necessary. I would like to highlight the pink on here, but he's not quite dry, so I'm gonna leave that pink alone for right now. I'm gonna kind of come in here and I'm gonna draw some highlights kind of on either side of the shading strokes that I have. Okay, notice I'm just kind of going on either side. Not a very heavy hand and not a whole lot of paint. I want to outline the legs, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here and put him under the dryer and work on the watermelon slice. I'll be right back. Hey Joy, so glad you could join us. So here's where we're at so far. That's what I've got done so far. He's got a lot of paint on him. I'm going to put him under the dryer and then I'm going to come back and finish him in just a minute. Hold on. Okay, we have some cute little watermelon slices here. There's not much to these guys. So I have a little watermelon slice. The thing I like about this is you can do the pattern that I have, which is what I'm gonna do. If you don't like that, turn this over, take the label off and do something else. Kind of whatever you wanna do. I think what I'm gonna do, because this piece is kind of small, I'm not gonna break out a big brush. Like a big round brush, but I'm going to, I think I'm going to use this bigger script liner. So, okay, let me get this. I'm going to make my circles pink. I have quite a bit of paint on the brush because I want to cover up that red. I think I'll put my watermelon slice out with my pink flamingo. I think they're both super cute. Okay, I've almost got all of that the way I want it. Now, I need to put some black right here for the seeds. My paper towel keeps flying away because I've got the ceiling fans going. Okay, so I'm going to put some black right here. Come back at it that way. Okay, so I've got the black on there. Washing that brush out is what I'm doing right over here. You can't see. And then I'm going to put some Christmas green. I think it's number 11. Use that Christmas green. All right. So I'm going to kind of come up here like so. following those lines is all I'm doing. The lines that the CNC created. Got a lot of paint on here, which is a good thing, but I hope I don't have too much. Let's go back up here, like so. Filling that in, just following the line of the pattern. Let's go up here. I got a lot of paint in here, so I'm taking it over here and I'm going to move it to this side. There we go. I'm going to do, I still have quite a bit of paint, so I can come over here and do that side with it. Kind of pull that paint off a little bit off the top, put it on the side right here, put a little bit more on here, not a lot, but just a little bit. Okay, that should do me. Okay, let's see. Can you tell what I'm doing? I don't know if the camera can really see it. Just painting that edge is all I'm doing. Now I have a lot of paint on there, so I'm going to straighten it out a little bit. And I've got something I'm going to show y'all while this thing is drying over there that I think hopefully will be helpful, because we get a lot of questions on this part. Hold up just a second. Okay, so the other night I did these, I think in the academy, and I told the ladies, I said, I'm going to show y'all. I think Ashley might have done this in a video, I'm not sure. This is something that's already painted, already dried, that kind of thing. All right. What did I have? A blanket right over here. So what I'm going to do is, y'all can tell my table is kind of crazy looking because what do? I paint all the time, so it's got paint all over it. So I'm going to draw off my table just a bit. Nothing serious. I've got a lot of old towels, old blankets and sheets mainly. I'm going to lay my sheet down like this. Okay, so I've got that sheet. And the trick here, I think, is just to make sure your sheet is flat and it's not real bubbly. You don't want that. So I've got my painted piece right here, and I'm putting that face down. Okay, so here's my roller. This is just a gallon-sized baggie. And I'm going to just paint this back, because I know some of you ask us questions a lot about painting bags. What color? How do I do that? You know, that sort of thing. So here's how I do it. After my front is totally dry, okay, I'll turn it over, but I have a piece of fabric of some sort. In my case, I usually use sheets or blankets. And then I will put the paint in the very middle of my piece. You don't want this paint out here, obviously, where these sides go out like that, okay? You don't want that. You want it in the very middle. And you want to load that roller up, kind of, to where you get it, where you got a nice good roll. And then you're going to go over here and you're just going to roller out here past the edge. Why am I doing that? Well, I want to make sure I get everything over here that's jutting out covered with back paint. I need a little bit more paint, so I'm going to put a little more here. Don't go crazy on this part. You don't want to put too much. You get too much paint, it'll start falling off the edges and dripping onto the face, and that's not what you want. Okay, so once you get it, your roller loaded again, you're going back. And where am I going? I'm going to those kind of crazy places right here. Trying to make sure that roller stays on the yard art piece and not on the blanket or not on the sheet. Okay, you don't want the roller on the fabric because then that's going to mess up your fabric, number one. But also, number two, you don't want so much paint that this stuff is gunking on the edges and falling. You don't want that. So notice what I do. I don't have a whole lot of paint on here, do I? Yes, I have some paint on this roller, but it's not like in the when I'm showing y'all I'm painting the faces and I have lots of paint on stuff, okay? So what we like is if you'll come in here and you'll take this roller and you notice your roller is going way out here, right? Why am I doing that? Let me show you what I'm talking about. Why am I having my roller come past here? I'm having my roller come past here because what am I doing? This is just what I've done all these years. It doesn't mean you have to. I'm making that roller create a nice, crisp, clean line of where the back paint meets the paint on the side. No, there's no police that are going to show up and arrest you if your paint doesn't have a clean line here. So that's not what this is about. This is just that kind of showing you the way I do it. You can kind of do what you want to do, but the trick is what you don't want is you don't want the paint dripping down to the face of the piece. That's what you don't want. So this is kind of a system that I've come up with over the years, and this is kind of how I do it. I make that brush, that roller, come past the edge of the piece, okay? See how I'm doing it? And that's because I want it to create a decent line of paint there. So hopefully that's helpful to you guys. And then I'm just rolling it out here, finishing. And once you have all the paint on there, that's really all you're gonna do. You're gonna let it dry. And what I do is I leave it face down on my sheet or my blanket, and I let it dry. Then once it's dry, I will probably go ahead, I haven't yet, but I'll poly the face of it with the poly. Then it's done. So you can kind of look at how my piece is painted on the back, of course. And on the back, I typically just use anything that I have, which in my case, I always have, I usually use some sort of gray or black or dark brown or some earth tone color. It typically is what I do. So in this case, I use gray. And you can look where that gray meets the side, right? It's got that good line of paint. I don't have paint dripping on my sides and dripping to the front. You don't want that. So that's kind of how I do it. Don't feel like you have to do it this way, but if there's anything in there that helps you, then that's super good. That's why we're here, okay? So that'll give you an idea of painting the back. There's the back, there's the front, okay? I'll be right back. All right, I'm gonna take up this blanket because I don't need it anymore. I'm going back to this guy. This guy's not quite dry, but you know what? He's dry enough that I think I can finish, and that's all I really care about. Okay, so here we go. What I'm gonna do at this point is I'm gonna go and put some white on these pink polka dots. And I'm not worried about being perfect. I'm just getting a highlight on there. That's all I'm doing. Okay. And because this is such a light pink, here's one thing I am gonna do. Because the body of this little guy is so light, I'm gonna come back over here. I'm gonna do this. I'm just giving it a little bit of darkness on such a light body. That's all I'm doing. Now this guy needs the beak, the shading yellow around this beak needs a little bit more help because I can see the wood down in that groove. So I'm gonna get this high script liner and I'm gonna go to town on that part. And I'm just filling in that paint in there is all I'm doing. Basically outlining, if you would, this beak with the shading yellow. I shade it with the shading yellow and now I'm kind of go back and outline it with the shading yellow. Same color. Now I've got a little bit more paint on there than what I had earlier, so I'm a happy camper about that. And I think what I'm gonna do, should have did this a while ago when I had the white out, didn't think about it. Oh, can't see the whole piece, I'm sorry. Is this better? Y'all, I wish I had a better, okay, hopefully. Is that better? Okay. So I've got the white. I'm going to work on his legs. And all I'm going to do is put a little bit of white on his legs around the outside. I'm not trying to put a whole lot of paint there. Just kind of a wispy line, if you will. Basically what all I'm doing is outlining his little skinny legs. That's all I did. Now I want to turn this guy over, or around, not over. I'm almost done with him, but it is important that I do this part. Y'all, we made it to almost Friday. Yay! Very happy about that. He's got some eyelashes. You can't really see it in here because I've got so much paint covering him. But I'll show you. You'll see him show up here in just a second. So he's got some pretty cool eyelashes, I think. Here's my little guy, okay? And then of course he's still real wet, so when he's dry, I'll flip him over on that sheet that I showed y'all earlier. I'll paint the back, and then I'll flip him back over, and I'll put the poly on the face, and then he's done. Hey Lynn, I'm so glad you could join us. When you get a chance, Lynn, kind of rewatch. I did a little tip on painting the backs that might be helpful. Hopefully it is, we'll see. So this is the little guy, right? And I'm gonna get my watermelon slice. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm not going to do a whole lot to this guy, but I'm going to give it some personality, as I like to say. Oh yeah, the eyelashes. Usually in the fall, I get probably 1 or 2 phone calls every day in the fall. Are you, first they'll say, are you the lady, are you the place that makes that yard stuff? Well, yeah, that's me. And they'll say, well, did you make this one? And they'll describe it. And I'll say, well, I don't know, maybe. I'll ask them, what is it? And they'll say, oh, it's some carolers or Santa. I was like, well, does it have big eyelashes? And they're like, yeah. I said, well, then I probably did it. Because that's kind of what I do. Who knows why I do what I do, but that's just kind of what I do. So I'm going to outline this a little bit and some of this. And this is at the point where I'm calling, not to say this is how you have to do it, but this is what I'm calling giving it some personality. That's what I like to call this part. It needs personality. Don't we all? Giving it some personality. And I'm just taking this script liner, putting that shading pink down in the groove that CNC bit created. That's all I'm doing. Giving it some personality. Okay, so I've got that. I don't think he needs any more of the shading pink, but I do think this little guy needs this. And notice when I'm putting the white on, it just kind of takes this piece to a whole new level. Just giving it some highlights, that's all I'm doing. And then I would even come up here and I'm going to outline the bite mark a little bit. Not a lot, just kind of giving it some definition there. There's just a little area to work with, so it's not like you can do a whole lot. Now what I like to do on something like this is I'm going to do this. I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to kind of make goofy little marks that kind of follow that CNC line. Okay, now the green I do think needs some help. So what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to get the mint green. Let me get this over here. And you can use lime green. Well, let's look at the back. What did I say I was going to use? Christmas green, dark green, red, white, and black. I didn't put a lime green on here, y'all, or a mint green. Sorry, but that creates a good point. So let's say you bought everything that was on the list and the lime green's not on the list. So what can we do? Well, let's just try this. Instead of me using the lime green, how about I do this? Let's just use the list. So you want to create a little color different than what's on the list? You can kind of do that. I'm going to put some Christmas green in here, right? Well, there doesn't want to come out of that bottle, so let's try it out of here. And I'm not using a lot because I don't need a lot. That's all I got in there, just a little bit. Let's get some white. Okay. I think I'll do about it. That's what I got in there. You kind of see that? That's what I got. Not a lot of either one. So instead of having to buy the lime green, which I don't have on the list, I'm going to kind of create a different color here, a lighter color. So I've got that kind of this way. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to load up that brush, okay? And I'm going to do this. It's got some grooves in here, like that. So I'm going to kind of come back and do that. Now, you can kind of see I've got some color on there, but I'm not feeling it too much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rinse that brush out, and I'm going to go back to the white. So I've got some of that on there. I'm going to put some white on here. And I'm going to just outline it like so. In between here, just kind of little dashes is all I'm doing. And then I'm going to kind of come in here and go close to what the CNC, or those little grooves in there. Okay. Then I think I got my watermelon slice. So you can see I did that green. I had Christmas green. I just took a little bit of it, put some white in there, stirred it, and got this other lighter green, and then I came back with white. You mean mint green? Well, actually, I don't know if you missed it, but I didn't write mint green on here. So if they don't have mint green at home, what I did is I just took the Christmas green, put some white with it, and made this because I didn't want them to have to buy mint green. Now, if you have mint green at home, you can do that, or any other green for that matter. But you get the idea. So there's my cute little watermelon slice. Not much to him, but he's super cute, I think. So I'm going to run over here right quick, and if this back is dry, the back I showed y'all how to paint a while ago, if it's dry, which I think it is, I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to show y'all how to do what I do on Polly in the face. Okay, so believe it or not, this is dry. This is what I painted the back earlier, okay? I'm going to lay this guy down right here. He's all dry. Now, I have my Polly in something like this. It doesn't matter what you have it in. You can have it in the little jar that you buy from the shop, okay? And there's a lot of different things you can do here. There's no one right or wrong way. But what I will say is you can use a roller to Polly. You can use a brush to Polly. You can use what I call these little sliders. Hold on, let me get one of those. So let's say you have one of these because you've been painting around your house. I'm going to use this tonight because this is what's convenient for me tonight. But you can use a brush. If you have a brush like this, you could brush it on like that. You could use a roller, but I will say, if you use a roller, make sure you use a very thin, napped roller. Do not use a roller that's got a lot of, a real big thick nap on it, because you'll get so much Polly on there. And there is such a thing as getting too much Polly. And you know you have too much Polly when it dries and it looks kind of cloudy. So, so the thing about Polly is this. You have to deal with the humidity, okay? It is just the nature of where we live, and that's never going to change. So if it's very humid outside and the wind is still and there's nothing moving out there, then be careful when you Polly, because it's easy for that Polly to sit there and get cloudy. If it's wintertime or the fall and we don't have good sun outside, be careful when you Polly. If it's too sunny, be careful when you poly. And what I mean by that is it's possible to put poly on there and you might get bubbles in it if the sun's hitting it and it dries too fast. So it is a balancing act is what it is, okay? If you poly inside, I'm indoors right now, I got a ceiling fan, I'm good to go. Because I'm not worried about humidity. Why? Because I'm inside. And this is AC and I got a ceiling fan. I'm not worried about that, okay? So what I would do is I'll put some poly again right here in the middle. I've got this little, I don't even know what these things are called, but y'all know what I'm talking about. You've seen them at the paint stores. And I'm just rubbing that poly back and forth is all I'm doing. Kind of getting it all over wherever I want it to be. You know, that's all I'm doing. And the thing about poly that I think is so good is not only does it protect your paint, which is a good thing, it just gives that nice, shiny, not sparkly, but a real shiny, glossy look. Okay, so you can tell I've got it in there. You can kind of see the way it's, the light is reflecting it. It kind of looks like a little milky or cloudy when you first put it on. That's normal. It will dry clear, provided, you know, you've got the air moving. So if you want to do poly, what I would do is make sure the air is moving when you're doing it. That could be under a ceiling fan. Or if you just have some wind outside, that would work too. Either way. But you don't want to poly in a situation where you've got lots and lots of humidity and you put lots and lots of poly on there, because you're really not going to like that, because it's going to look cloudy and it's going to dry cloudy. So that's not a good thing. All right. Okay, y'all, 50 minutes. I did this in 50. I'm trying to get the videos where I'm going so long. I know it's hard to watch a long video. But thank God for rewind and fast forward. But thank y'all for joining me. Ashley will be here on Monday. I don't really remember what she's doing, but I think she'll be here Monday. Right, Ashley? And Phaedra, back it up. I don't think you could see us, but I think I talked about shading in here too. That might be helpful. But she'll be in here on Monday. Love you guys for watching us and, supporting us, and hoping you guys are getting some really good information and some good encouragement to keep going, to keep creating, whether it's yard art or whatever you're going to paint. There's a million things you can paint. So we'll be in touch. We'll talk to you guys soon. Hope y'all have a good weekend. Oh, Ashley's saying, Victoria's Sunday. Yes, Ashley, what is she doing on Sunday? Oh, we'll give Ashley a minute to answer that, because I love to watch Miss Victoria. She's such a great painter and a great teacher, and we're very, very blessed to have her helping us out. So I don't know what she's doing on Sunday, but Ashley said she's doing Sunday, so that's good. And need more shading, so we'll keep working on that. Okay. All right. Sounds good. So hopefully y'all will join us on Sunday. She's doing the birthday cake and candles. Oh, that's so good, because I'm excited on that. And we'll talk to you guys soon. Y'all have a great weekend, and thank y'all so much. Bye-bye.